Hi, I'm Joleen Lunzer.
And I'm Sarah Atwood.
We're YouTubers.
We're entertainment and pop culture fanatics.
But most importantly, we're friends.
Good Pop is a weekly podcast where we chat about pop culture, entertainment, life, and share some good news stories.
Because right now, we could all use some good in our lives.
So sit back, relax, and get some of this good pop.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Pop Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joleen Lunzer, and I'm here with my co-host, Sarah Atwood.
Hello.
How are you, Sarah?
I am doing okay. How are you, Jolene?
You know, I think okay sums it
right?
up.
It's about where we are. It's lovely to see you again. We took a break. We had to take a moment of silence last weekend, but it's nice to see you again.
It's always nice to see you. Thank you very much. So you guys, welcome. If you're joining us here on live, feel free to let your the comments just fly. Just let us know how you feel. Talk to us. We love you guys. If you're joining us later on iTunes, hello, future listener. Don't forget to rate and review. I think we're up to 7 rates and reviews. I'd love to get to 10 this week.
Thank you.
So if you guys could rate and review, that'd be amazing. Please give this video a thumbs up if you are joining us now live. Share it out to your friends. This episode's actually going to be a little different format, sort of. We can't really ignore what's going on in current events and things that are happening and protests and movements and Black Lives Matter in particular. So we are going to be covering stories, positive stories coming from the protests and Black Lives Matter and everything going on. Right, Sarah? That's what we're doing.
We are an entertainment podcast with good news, positive news. But yes, like you said, we're going to talk about what is happening right now, but we're gonna give it some a positive uplift, if that's possible.
If that's possible. We have also included links in the description of this video. We really want to support in this video organizations that we've seen floating around online where people have said, how can we help? So we have a Black Lives Matter link there. We have a petition to sign for Breonna Taylor. Yesterday would have been her 27th birthday. She was the young woman who was killed in her home. And I think it was Missouri. So yes, happy birthday to her. Okay, happy birthday to her. And then we also have, Sarah, you provided me with, what is that? It was like
it's the National Resources List. It's like quite a compilation of petitions and places to donate. And it's got just about everything you need right now.
Awesome. And everything donated today via Super Chat or however you want to. I definitely say put it directly to those organizations. I think that's the best way to do it with the links in the description. But Maya just gave us a $9.99 Super Chat. So I will make sure that I donate that to one of the organizations listed, probably Black Lives Matter, in our description. And I will take a screenshot of that. We'll put it on Good Pop so you guys can see the money went there. I did that on a podcast I do with my mom, 90 Day with Nana. We got $35 and we put it to the Black Lives Matter. So yeah, there's
Thank you, Maya. Good to see you.
So I think there's so many ways that we can have a discussion about this as a whole. And then we can also feel, even if you're not out and able to protest, maybe directly like out in the street, get out amongst the people, there are still things you can do online and like.
Absolutely. David is at a protest today. But he is good at that kind of stuff, and I am not good at that kind of stuff. So I like to point out that, there's a ton of different lanes to be in. Just as long as we are all moving in the same direction, let's appreciate and value that everyone works differently and speaks differently.
Yes. Well said, Sarah. So yes, you guys, thank you so much. So anything that you can do, and if you can give. If you can't, there are petitions to be signed and things to be posted and education to be had. We can all continue learning. So let's get started, because I actually found so many positive stories around, the current events, around, all the protests in the country, with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud. Unfortunately, the list goes on, and I'm seeing the mainstream media. I hate to be like the mainstream media, but you see, I mean, I never watch, I don't know about you, Sarah, but I never watch like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. I try to go to more alternative news, like different. And what I learned watching that, because when the George Floyd murder happened in Minneapolis, I'm obviously from Minnesota. So I, not that I was more engaged in it because of that, but there's just something about something that horrific happening where you grew up that is just, and it's again, my own probably naivety, my own privilege, that I just thought something that horrific wouldn't happen where I'm from. And that's where I can learn a lot going forward. But when I was watching CNN, I was literally plugged into CNN, and it is a machine of just anxiety. And they're like coming up, and it's all for ratings. And it's really hard right now with the news, because I feel as though it's not covering all the sides we need to see. We need to also see the action being taken, the positivity, and to label all the protesters as looters and rioters is just so irresponsible. And we saw that a lot in the media. So when I was looking for my stories, there was so much good that's starting to happen from these marches. And there was someone had said, there was a gentleman, a story I'm going to share about Lincoln, Nebraska, and he had said a really great quote, and I wish I had it right here in front of me, but it was kind of basically what he was saying is, once the protests begin, after the protests or while the protest is going on, then the action, then we start taking action as well. Right. So he said it a lot. He said it a lot more eloquently than I did. Here's what he said. He said, "Marching is showing unity before we get to action." And his name is John Goodwin, and he's the executive director of the Malone Center, which is a community center in Lincoln, Nebraska, that serves as a cornerstone for education, cultural advocacy, things like that. So so I think that, to go on this long-winded, I keep talking, it's important for the media, and I think they need to take better responsibility to show all sides and not just be doom and gloom in order to get ratings.
Yeah, unfortunately, the media is just like every other business out there. It's a business, and they're there to make money. And so other things like maybe humanity and well-rounded information is going to get thrown to the side because they just need to make money.
Exactly. Now, quick thing, since we do cover Big Brother, and Seriously Kind brought this up, and I don't know if you saw this, Sarah, but Ika Wong, who is from BB Canada, she's a legend. She also does the interviews for BBUS, for BB Can. She does Survivor interviews, I think. She's amazing. I follow her on Twitter, adore her. She recently, I think yesterday, was posted a bunch of tweets about how she left ET Canada due to their silence on Black Lives Matter, and how she wrote to them directly saying that is, showing me that you care very little about your people of color and about, your Black employees, that you are silent on this. And their excuse, I think, was that they're an entertainment website and they shouldn't cover this. However, they started covering it once they saw basically what they were saying, the popularity. So they did it when it was safe.
Sure. I think that that's amazing of Ika. I would expect nothing less from her. She's definitely someone who is outspoken about, well, at least her beliefs, but I also want to say what is right. And so good for her. I know it's hard to leave a job. I know it's hard to leave a company, but being able to say, for these beliefs, I can't stand by you is fantastic.
Fantastic. So I definitely want everyone to go out there, support Ika. She does have her own YouTube channel. She makes great content. So support her, follow her. Taking a risk like this, and Sarah knows, Sarah was worked in LA in entertainment for a very long time. I live in Los Angeles. I mean, stepping out and doing the right thing is so hard to do, to stand up to these big, huge conglomerates, to stand up to these and worrying, will I ever work again? That's what we're seeing. A lot of people in the media, even Keke Palmer recently, she's out there in the streets protesting, and people are worried that this is going to affect their livelihood, their career, and it shouldn't. But
shouldn't.
unfortunately, yeah.
But it has. It literally has in the past. And we've come to a breaking point when people are like, I just can't anymore. You cannot hold me hostage. You can't silence me. And thank goodness, because I think the more that we do this, then you don't have to worry about your job. If everyone is standing up for what's right and leaving their jobs, then we're going to keep working and there'll be more jobs for them.
Exactly. I think that Aika will see a lot of opportunities coming toward her because of her authenticity, because of her bravery. And so just positive, good vibes out to Aika. Right. And so glad you followed your heart and what felt right for you. And you stood up when it's really hard to stand up. Really, really hard.
Yes, it is.
So let's get started.
Need her. Yeah. We need her to do it. Can I, Joleen, may I start with our astrological minute because it's very spot on to what's going on right now.
Is Mama Bev in the chat? I don't see
Mama
her.
Bev, where are you?
Shout out to Mama Bev.
Wake up, Mama Bev. She has been talking to me for a couple of weeks about this, but now that we are in the midst of it, you can really see what's happening. There's a lot of astrological things lining up right now. So it all went ahead yesterday. We had a full moon in Sagittarius, but it also had a lunar eclipse, and that was squaring Mars. Okay, let me break it down for you. So we've been feeling these energies building up, and we will still feel them as we sort of wane away from this eclipse that's happening. Oh, there's Mama Bev in the chat.
Yay!
So that's what we've been feeling. So Sagittarius is a fire for truth. Then you have Mars, which is a strong desire for action and working towards something. Then you've got Mars in Pisces, and Pisces ranges from like victimhood, feeling victimized, all the way through like needing healing, needing wholeness. And eclipses bring change into motion. So all of that is what we've been feeling over the last at least week. And so no wonder that we just have had enough and we had to start acting out and sort of yelling that we will not take this anymore. And that is where we are astrologically.
Thank you, Sarah. That was quite the astrological minute.
Right?
Mama
it's
Bev.
Crazy to see all of this line up, but then you actually are seeing it happening in front of us.
That is amazing. Shout out to Mama Bev, and thank you for the astrological minute. All right. So do you want to get started, Sarah? We're going to be going back and forth and sharing stories that we found, positive news stories and things happening within Black Lives Matter, the protests, and celebrities and things like that.
Yes. Well, speaking of celebrities speaking out, John Boyega, who we know and love from Star Wars, he gave a speech at a Black Lives Matters protest in London. And in his speech, which is very passionate and beautiful, and if you can Google it and look it up and listen to the whole thing, I would recommend it. But part of what he said was, look, I don't know if I'm going to have a career out of this, but like, I can't worry about that right now. Like, I got to, do this. And the upswell of support that he got from directors online, I thought was really beautiful. So I have a couple of their tweets that I thought were extra special. First, Jordan Peele was just like, we got you, like, no worries. And then Charlie Brooker, who created Black Mirror, he said, I will crawl through a barrel of broken glass to have John Boyega even so much as glance at one of my scripts, which I love.
That's amazing. I love Black Mirror. Love, love, love. Oh, wonderful.
Then my most favorite, because this is so British, Duncan Jones, who is an indie director, he said, I mean, he's from Peckham and I'm from Bromley, but even so, I've still got his back. And I don't know what that means, Joleen, but I just adored the Britishness of it.
I do not know what that means either, but that must be maybe that, he maybe in like Minnesota terms, he's from Minneapolis, I'm from St. Paul.
Exactly.
So I have no idea. He's from Silver Lake, I'm from Echo Park. I don't know. Right. But I love that. I saw that he was out there in London and that he was protesting, and that there is this worry, like we talked about with Keke Palmer and other people who are standing up, and Aika, that you won't work again. And so I love that not only are people able to be vulnerable and admit that they're afraid of this, but then other people are able to step up and go, no, I will make sure I support you.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of what we need. We need to be like, yep, no, I got your back. Let's do this together.
I love that. Okay, so in another news story, according to The Root, Kanye West now we know we've had, Kanye West has had some moments throughout the past 4 years or so, but recently he made substantial contributions to the families and legal teams working for Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. He actually donated $2 million so far to the cause. He set up a 529 college savings fund to fully cover tuition for Floyd's 6-year-old daughter, Gianna, which is amazing. He also made a separate donation to cover legal costs of Arbery and Taylor's families. So Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery's families, all their legal costs are being covered right now by Kanye West, who recently, I think it came out that he's worth 1.3 billion. But then of course, Kanye came out and was like, no, I'm actually worth 3.3 billion. He's also been on the ground with the people. So he's also been out in the streets and protesting. He recently joined a protest in Chicago, and that is where Kanye is from. And if you listen to his early albums like College Dropout, he would talk a lot about Chicago. And so he was out there in a protest organized by the Chicago Public School students, along with honoring Floyd. The students were demanding that the Chicago Public Schools cut ties with the Chicago Police Department. So Kanye was out there with his mask on, supporting these young students, which I think is amazing, because it's, Kanye was getting called out on Twitter recently, like, why are you silent? Where are you at? But it looks like he is putting his money and also himself out there.
Right.
I don't know if people I don't know what people kind of expected of Kanye, because, he's went in ways that we haven't always understood.
Right. And I don't understand him in general, and he often confuses me, but I am glad to see that he is putting his, popularity and his money to good use.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like, as a Kanye West fan, because I love Kanye West music, and I've struggled with some of the things that he's done over the years with like, can I listen to this? But oh man, it's so good.
Right.
But I almost feel like we're getting, like, this might sound weird, but like the old Kanye back. Like, I feel like, he had a lot of, not to get too far into like a Kanye dissection, but he had a lot of trauma in his life, losing his mom. And I think going into this like huge, like, family, the Kardashians, and not just blaming the Kardashians, but it's a machine. I think you can get lost in it, including like mental health things. I think there's a lot of aspects there that hopefully one day we will see. And maybe this is the beginning of seeing the Kanye that we loved early on, because he was, he really spoke from where he was from, being Chicago, and his lyrics and his talent is great. So good on you, Kanye.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. So one thing that has come out of the last couple weeks, I'd say, is a lot of recommendations, and sort of like, here's some books you can read, here's some movies you can watch, which I do feel like I have taken this time to sort of ingest that, because I am definitely not anyone who can speak on this platform and be like, this is how I feel about things. I want to listen, and I want to learn as much as possible right now. And one thing that I saw and have really enjoyed is a thing called Girltrek. And you can find them on Instagram. That's where I found them first. But they're a group of ladies who put together, it's totally free, a sort of female Black history boot camp. But they put it in a packaging called Walking and Meditating, which is kind of just how it perked up to me. I was like, ooh, I walk every day and I meditate every day, so this sounds fun. So they send out an email every day, and each email is focused on one Black woman and what sort of she was about and her accomplishments. But they include a Spotify list and fancy video.
Oh, thank you. I'm just pulling up. This is the Girltrek website you're talking about, girltrek.org. Love it.
Yes. Yes. So it has a Spotify playlist that you should listen to while you're walking. That's at least the goal. But it includes speeches or reading material from the Black woman that it is covering. They include question starters to sort of help you with your meditation. And it has not only been educational, but it's just been kind of positive and feel good. And so I've been enjoying it, and I kind of just wanted to highlight them for everybody else.
Yes, we'll go to girltrek.org. This looks awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't believe just like free of charge, I'm getting all of this information and inspiration.
Yes, that's awesome. Love something free for sure.
Yeah, right.
In a little more, combine maybe two things together here. Okay, so the first thing is staying on the trend of my stories revolving around hip hop artists. Jay-Z actually gave his private plane to Ahmaud Arbery's lawyers so they could get to a court hearing. So they had an issue where they needed to be in Georgia. They couldn't catch a flight. They were really worried about it. And according to one of the lawyers, which is S. Lee Merritt, his Instagram account, he posted a picture of this, and I don't know if I have it up here. I probably don't, because that would, make me too ready, too prepared. But he said they had a court hearing in Brunswick, Georgia this morning. No flights to take us there last night. So he he and the other lawyer, they spent hours trying to find flights or cars or anything. And then at 1 a.m., we started losing hope when they got a call from Jay-Z's people at Rock Nation, who chartered a flight for them to attend his hearing with the family of Ahmaud Arbery. So they were like saying, thankful for your support, and updates on the hearing coming soon. So I thought that is
cool. Fantastic. That's the kind of stuff we need. We need private jets and money and all these resources that I think often these victims don't get.
Right.
And if those lawyers didn't show up, it'd just be part of the whole ugly process of like, well, then we can't move forward. Nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
Like, we're not going to let that happen.
It would be some bureaucratic bull. So nice that we're seeing so many people really step up and offer. Now, a little something, just because that one was, I had two hip hop ones in a row. And I wanted to add in, they had, I don't know if you saw the video of Gianna, George Floyd's daughter on the shoulders of, I think, her uncle. And she was saying, Daddy changed the world. And so there's a video of that, you guys, that I would like to play. Hopefully we can hear it here. And it was really beautiful because we're seeing this young girl. I mean, all I can think is like years later, there's going to be George Floyd has become such a symbol now, very symbolic. He himself, that name is now a household name when it comes with, civil rights and things like that. So I wonder, this little girl has a lot on her shoulders going forward, because I think there'll be media as she grows up very interested in her, wanting to talk to her, which we found of a lot of children or family members of people who, passed away under very tragic circumstances. And there becomes an interest then in their kids and stuff. So there's a video that's been going viral everywhere. Let me know if you guys can in fact hear it. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Not sure I can hear it.
You can't?
No.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Well, she's adorable. She's 6 years old. And Gigi is just on the shoulders of, I think it is her uncle here. And she just said, Daddy changed the world. And it completely went viral because you're seeing this little girl who is going through, the most tragic thing you can go through as a child. And also on such a public level, and having your father be murdered, for people to go back and watch forever and ever. And then to see this outpouring of love and support by so many people, to see your dad's faces places, and his face and his name is what's driving this new movement that almost feels, to me, it feels very revitalized, because there's still a lot of stigma around Black Lives Matter, and there's still a lot of stigma when you talk about anything having to do with privilege. But this is the first time in probably my entire life that I have seen, or I've seen more people, especially people with the same skin color as you and I, Sarah, more white people embrace this and finally start going, all right, maybe there is something here. Maybe I need to like drop my ego and drop this, oh, it's not my fault. And, this whole very defensiveness, and realize that this is an issue that we as humans need to tackle. So it was just, I'm sorry you guys couldn't hear the video, but it's beautiful, but it's also, it's heartbreaking, because this little girl has to carry this. I mean, she's going to have to carry this. I mean, and it's just something this shapes her whole life. This changes everything.
Yeah, no, she'll be talking about this and feeling this and thinking of it for the rest of her life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this has been a problem forever, but unfortunately it took this to wake, I guess, the rest of the country up. So thank goodness there is a louder yell, but yeah, it's unfortunate that this is what it took.
Yeah. Okay. I apologize. The gentleman that has her on his shoulders is actually a basketball player. I'm sorry. I know so little about sports. But I do have a sports story included. And I had to ask Chell, like, who are these people? So that's former basketball player Steven Jackson. He was her dad's childhood friend. And he did it. And I should have known that. He did an interview with the Breakfast Club. And he also went to Minneapolis. And so, yes, thank you, Netta, so much for that information.
I want to keep going with sort of my recommendations because I do feel like let's keep learning and growing. I know there's a lot of books out there, and I believe our good gal is doing a book club. Is that what Maya was just saying, that there's going to be a book club going on? But I don't read. Okay, so I like to watch movies and listen to TV shows and things like that. So my recommendations are more in that world. So I say, everyone, if you haven't already, watch Moonlight. It won an Oscar. It's now on Netflix. If you haven't watched the movie Just Mercy, I 100% recommend it and feel like you need to watch it. It's on Amazon Prime right now. It came out last year. It's got Jamie Lee Foxx in it.
Oh, yes. I wanted to see that. I haven't seen that. And that was it came out like right before the theaters closed due to the pandemic, right? Due to COVID. It was one of the...
It came out last year. It was 2019. But it's about the justice system, and it's very, I think that's a compelling story and good to know. If you didn't see the movie Loving, about interracial marriages, there is a couple, their last name is literally Loving. There was a movie. There's also a documentary about them. Those are both out there that you can find. And a documentary that I just discovered this week is called Crime and Punishment, and it's on Hulu. And it's about a group of NYPD officers who are minorities who filed a suit against NYPD. And it was extremely educational for me. I may not know as much as a lot of people, and that's kind of why I'm taking this time to learn. But like, I was like watching it like that, like learning so much. So I have been loving this content, and I want to just share it and keep the word going.
Yes, Sarah, I love that. I love those recommendations, because there's a lot of things on that list that I still have to watch and still have to see. So also check out, I don't know if you watch Netflix, the Central Park 5 documentary.
Yeah.
That was something that was very, I mean, it was so powerful. And to get, yes.
It's a great movie.
Exactly. Speaking of that, I have two books that one book I'm reading right now and one that I'm going to read. And the first one that I got and it arrived, Chell got a book and I forget which book he got. He's already finished it because he's like a way better reader than I am. I'm kind of like you, Sarah. I enjoy, like Audible. Read to me. However, I have to, like, as a writer, I have to be reading more, but I'm always like, oh, I was a journalism major. I read so much. I took so many English classes. It's like, no, read a book, Jolene. Okay. So the one I'm reading right now is called Eloquent Rage, and it is by Brittany Cooper. And a Black feminist discovers her superpower. And that, to me, I started reading, I think I'm on like page 60 or something. It's like a 300-page book. So I got some reading to do. But I just got it. I really like it. And the things she says are so powerful, and just about like Black women and feminism and just like loving women and just kind of almost I relate to her because we're like the same age, and so the time she's talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, I was that age and things. Right. So definitely Brittany Cooper, definitely recommend that book. The next one I'm excited to read because I've been watching a lot of videos about her. And it is Robyn, I believe, D'Angelo. She wrote a book called White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. And I've been watching on YouTube some of her talks. And, sometimes when you watch authors and you see them speak, you're like, oh, no thanks. But she's actually someone who is very self-aware and also holds herself to the same standards. It's not like, because I think a lot of people right now, a lot of white people are feeling, they're like, they feel like they're being blamed. And her thing is, I'm not going to have guilt. Like there's that big thing, like white guilt. It's not about having guilt. What she's saying, it's about recognizing that this exists. And then what are you going to do about it? You don't have to feel guilty about anything, but now you need to be responsible and act responsibly and find out, how we can kind of, how you can fight against systemic racism, how you can realize how your privilege, works. And so she obviously was a lot better at explaining it than I explained it. But she seems like a very interesting person. And, some writers, like I said, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. But she definitely was very charismatic. And I liked her because she was talking about things that she did that she didn't even realize until she was called out on. As she was like writing these books and having these talks, and then people were like, oh, well, and then she's like, oh shit. So we always have something to learn. Everyone has something to learn. Right. So,
I feel like that's so important to just acknowledge, like, it is systemic. It is in us. We're raised with it. It's around us, and we don't always recognize it in ourselves or other people. So again, listen and learn and continue to evolve.
And don't be defensive. There's no reason to be defensive, because really, when you're working for the rights of Black Lives Matter, and when you're actually cognizant of the importance of this, you're working for the rights of yourself too. Yeah. Because what affects an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You should want Black lives to matter so that your life matters, so that all lives going forward matters. And, we see a lot of that. Yeah, we see a lot of the All Lives Matter posts, and we don't need that, because I saw such great memes, Sarah, this week, and you probably have too. And, when you write All Lives Matter, it just makes you look, it makes you look really petty. It also makes you look very, it's just kind of ridiculous, because when you compare, when we're seeing these memes, and there was a meme that was like, when we say save the whales, we're not saying F every other.
Right. Save the whales, but no other sea creature whatsoever. Save this house is on fire. Save this house. No, my house next door. It's like, yes, these are great. I love these. I honestly have been appreciating all of these, because I don't like to talk about some very, very personal stuff, but I have people in my family that I legitimately have these conversations with, and I don't always know what to say when they're like, all lives matters. I don't always have the best comebacks. And so to have these memes is actually super helpful, so that I can be like, oh yeah, save the whales, but no sharks. Like what? Now I feel armed with more things to say.
Exactly. I think that's really important too, because it's also, you got to call people out. You have to, this is now a time where we can't just stand by and go, we don't want to ruffle feathers. You really just got to be like, dude,
Nope.
you're being a dick. You know, you're saying, right.
Right.
Like, do you really want to be like this? Is this really how you want to live? This, what you want your life to be about? Like, come on. So this one, my friend Chantel from high school, she posted this one. I thought it was so cute. And just like, this perfect. It says, we said Black Lives Matter. The meme says, this young girl's holding the sign. And she said, never said only Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We just need your help with Black Lives Matter, for Black lives are in danger. So
it's a very nice way of putting it.
A very nice way of putting it. It's not like, because, you know, grizzly bears or brown bears were going extinct doesn't mean black bears are shit. Doesn't mean we're just like, I hate those black bears. You know what I mean? Like, of course, all bears matter. But at this time, it was the brown bears, the grizzly bears that were going extinct. So
yes.
It's amazing just the conversation now. And like Sarah, you were saying how now I'm able to explain this to people, because you're always going to have people. We'll probably have people once this video posts who will, you know, people have unfollowed me. I know for this stuff. I've gotten messages multiple times about this. People have accused me of virtue signaling, all that stuff. And I don't know
what that is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like we're just like, we're so past that. I definitely used to be concerned with like, oh gosh, I don't want people to unfollow me. I don't want to be too polarizing in one way, but like, I'm done. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care. Honestly, if you're unfollowing anyone right now, they probably great, go. Like, it's probably for the best. We don't need any of that crap. We are moving forward in a more positive direction. And like, if you're not getting on the bus, like, you're going to get run over later. Like,
yeah. Someone said it perfectly on Twitter, like, the trash is taking itself out. Like, that's fine. Yeah. You know, and if you guys follow my channel at all, you know that I've never really worried about it. Almost to a fault. I don't worry about who follows me. I mean, obviously we're in this business and I'm like, I want to get to 7K subs and I'm so close, but if it takes me having to like sell my soul, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No, I believe in quality over quantity. If I stay at 4,000 subs forever, you know what? I have 4,000 really positive, supportive people right now. And so I don't need to get to 10,000 if they're just going to be crappy people.
Exactly. All right, Sarah, do you have another story?
Well, I would like to move into some of my good news that I found. I mean, all of this is kind of blending, but specifically 9-year-old Cameron Johnson of Minneapolis. She is the daughter of a former football player, Ron Johnson. Again, I'm not as good with sports either, Jolene. But she started, instead of like a lemonade stand, she has a stand outside her house where she makes bracelets. Her and her little 9-year-old girlfriends, they make little bracelets and they started to sell them. And they have raised $36,000 that they are putting towards Minneapolis families in need.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yes.
A fellow Minnesota girl.
Yes, she's upset by what's happening in her town. She wanted to help her dad because he is this former athlete. I just mentioned it on a radio show that he was on, and that blew it up. And people out of town can Venmo to them and get a bracelet, but it started with just a little stand in her yard.
If little children can do that, imagine what grown-ass people can do, you know? That's the amazing part when we're all like, I'm so busy. I'm just like, and it's like little kids made bracelets and raised $36,000.
Exactly.
That is so amazing. Well, I have a story, a good news story. Now, I didn't know about this trend. So there was a woman that posted an article in popsugar.com, and she attended, her name's Jada Welch, and she attended a paddle out ceremony for Black Lives Matter. So not only are protests happening on the street, but they can actually happen in the water. So she talks about how it was so incredibly moving. I want to share it here with you guys so you can see. So as you can see here, so here's the circle. I'm showing it for if you're listening later on iTunes. In the ocean in Maui, there's a bunch of people in a circle, and the numbers were actually So here you have a gentleman on his surfboard holding up another surfboard saying RIP George Floyd. And I think they said they're joining hands. They joined hands in a circle in the water. 255 other souls were out there. And I think there was also people that were on the shore as well. So there were 256 boards in the water and at least 50 more people showing their support from the shore with handmade signs. And then this happened on May 31st. It was like a Sunday afternoon at 4:30. And since then, there have been other ceremonies to commemorate Black Lives Matter that have been organized around Hawaii. And they said it was just a time where they could take action and have people join together and kind of, have like a prayer circle and share their thoughts and feelings and hopes for the future as they process the devastating and brutal murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, to mention a few. So
that's fantastic. I love that. I love the whole notion of, we all do it differently. We all work differently. We think differently. So what is the way that you feel comfortable speaking up, and this is their skill. This is what they do probably to meditate, to let go. And it's so lovely to see. And I do believe they did this in Southern California as well. I saw.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I saw something just quickly. There was like a picture where they spelled, oh shoot, and now I'm horrible because I don't have it written down, but they spelled something out very positive with their boards and you could see it from above. So I love that. I love using whatever it is that you do in your life.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so many people now have been using their social media, like we talked about earlier. You can, use YouTube. You can be surfing. You can do a hike for this. There's just so many ways that you can, show your First Amendment right and get out there and say how you feel. Last night I saw something go live. A friend of mine, a comedian, she was live on Instagram on Sunset right by the Laugh Factory there. The street shut down. There were just cars stopped with their four-ways on and they had a stage and music. So I don't know what was happening, but that looked pretty amazing. She went live from there for a little bit. So
that is great. Yes. Okay. So my next good news, we're going to go back in time a little bit.
All right.
I want to take you back to 1954 when protesters got out there, and that led to the Brown versus Board of Education ruling, making racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. Then we jumped to 1955 when there was a bus boycott, and that led later that year to the Supreme Court ruling against segregated buses. 1960, there was a sit-in at segregated diners in the South, leading to desegregation of public places. Then we had in 1963, the very famous Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech at a march on Washington. And that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We had the March from Selma to Montgomery that led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So I bring all of that good news up to say that when people yell and complain about protesters or marches or what's the point, why are people angry, you have to keep doing it because that is what leads to change. If we sit here quietly, just annoyed, nothing actually changes.
Yes, that was beautiful, Sarah. Thank you. And also reminding me of important history. I feel like you gave a history lesson. Again, I went to, U.S. public school, so a lot of things were lost on me. But yes, all those are no real change came from just sitting at home on your couch, not saying or doing anything. So when, like you said, when we see people, it's so confusing to me that people are out there wondering, when are these protests going to be over? When we just had protests that people were protesting because they couldn't get their hair cut. People were protesting because they didn't want to wear masks. So I think protesting murder and equality for people is a little more important than a haircut. I haven't gotten a haircut. I just bought a bunch of wigs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Make it work. But in the same right, they do have that right to protest about not getting a haircut the same way people have the right to protest and say, I don't want to be murdered on the streets. I want to feel, safe, and I want to be treated the same as my white counterparts when we're out and when we are approached by the police. So
we have to be forced into uncomfortable areas. If you are just comfortable, nothing changes, right? And so I know no one wants to be uncomfortable. White people don't want to be uncomfortable with blame right now. Black people don't want to be uncomfortable with murder right now. Like, nobody wants to be uncomfortable. No one wants their target burned to the ground. It's all very uncomfortable. But unfortunately, we have to do that if we want any change. So I support it. I love it.
Yes. Now, speaking of that, now Morris says a good comment. Loving this, but I hope everyone turns out to vote, elect sheriffs, DAs, etc., which is where we get let down. Now, I have two stories regarding that, if you don't mind,
please,
Sarah. So this week, the Missouri football players marched from campus to courthouse and knelt for 8 minutes and 46 seconds to honor George Floyd. Then 62 of them registered to vote. And people on Reddit were saying this is how change happens. So exactly what you're saying, Morris. Yes. They got out, they protested, they marched, they said their piece, and they'll continue to say their piece, but they also took another form of action, which is our democracy, and they registered to vote. So
yeah, I mean, it's so true. This is such a good point, because these officials that are letting us down, the district attorney, the sheriffs, like, these people are actually elected officials. So we actually have control over this. If they're letting us down, if they're letting you down in your community, vote their booties out. And then we eventually bring in more and more until this isn't an issue anymore.
Exactly. And I think the more we stay diligent on topics and political topics, and the more, I mean, not to get too far into this, but, things with like our representation, we're lacking a lot because of campaign finance issues. Right now, you got to have so much money to run. And it's a very clear inequity and economic discrepancy. We can't have people like you or I really representing us without a huge like super PAC or organization behind us. So I really do feel until we have some kind of campaign finance reform pass, until people realize that we have to take these huge dollars out of politics, we will never truly be represented by our representatives. Now, also, the NFL, something very interesting, and I retweeted a gentleman who said the NFL owes Colin Kaepernick an apology, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Colin Kaepernick did what everyone who is criticizing the protesters is saying they should be doing right now. He peacefully protested, took a knee regarding the injustices that Black Americans feel and the brutality from the police. And people were like, they changed the narrative from injustice in the police to the flag in the military, which we know is something that triggers people. So they knew what they were doing when they changed this narrative to make it into you're anti-American, you're against the troops. Colin Kaepernick never was against the troops, never said. He merely was silently, peacefully protesting, taking a knee regarding the injustices of Black Americans that he saw happening. And so now the NFL, they had now again, this is the story where I had to ask Chell, like all stuff. Okay. So the NFL has now officially changed its stance on peaceful protesting in Black Lives Matter. It's good, but it's also like, it cost Colin Kaepernick his career. It cost him so much. This man put so much on the line, and people should really be apologizing to him, because there were people from all sides, both sides of the coin, conservative, liberal, progressive, libertarian, Green Party, who came forward and were before when the NFL has come forward saying that this isn't a military thing. There were actually military members, Marines, who came forward and said, he's not talking about that. I get what he's talking about. And I am happy he is protesting that way. So,
I think that this is such a good example, because it's exactly the discussion right now of like, why can't you just peacefully protest? And it's like, okay, here's the perfect example. That's exactly what he was doing. Peacefully protesting police brutality. He lost his job. He lost his career, and no change happened. Nothing came out of it except for complaints from people who were offended by it. So guess what? We had to escalate it. So sorry, peaceful protests don't work.
Yeah, I mean, they trashed Colin Kaepernick and his character for someone who was who had a platform, who had all this money, who had the career. He could have so easily stayed silent and just been like, well, I'm rich now, so who cares? But he chose not to. They trashed him for it. And yeah, it just goes to prove no one can win either way. You can't win peacefully. Right. You can't. And just so everybody knows, and even, myself, I was reading, it's still considered a peaceful protest, even if you're yelling in the streets. You're protesting, as long as you're not physically harming someone or, property or whatever, or looting. I mean, it's a peaceful protest. Okay, so back to this story. So officially now, the NFL dude, and I want to get his name right. His name is Goodell or something. So
the commissioner,
the commissioner dude. Okay, commissioner dude. But here's how it happened. What happened was one of the employees at the NFL went rogue, Sarah, and his name is Brandon Minter, and I think he worked in like the social media. He sent an Instagram message. This all happened via Instagram. I mean, this is amazing. He messaged Saints receiver Michael Thomas, who I don't know who that is, but Chell was like, "Yeah, Michael Thomas." I'm like, "Okay."
Sure.
Regarding creating content to be heard around the league. He said, "I am an NFL social employee and I'm embarrassed by how the league has been silent this past week. The NFL hasn't condemned racism. The NFL hasn't said Black Lives Matter." So then that sparked a reaction from the receiver, Michael Thomas, within hours. And then they made this video, and a bunch of African-American players in the league made this video that's now gone viral. And I'd play it for you guys, but obviously I'm having sound issues. But it's really beautiful from all different teams throughout the NFL. And then the NFL had some kind of Zoom meeting, and a bunch of employees, and especially Black employees, shared their experience. And it's reported that there were tears that were shed. And finally, it took all of this for the commissioner dude, I'm just going to call him Commissioner dude Goodell, said, "We, the NFL, condemn racism and the systemic oppression of Black people." He came out with a video like in his basement. "We, the NFL, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourage all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the NFL, believe Black Lives Matter."
Thank you. Finally, I do love a social media person going rogue.
Right?
They're the best because they're not high-level people. They're not entry level, but they're not running, they're not executives, but they are in charge of social media, and they have the ability just to be like, my bosses are not doing it right, and I love it.
And this guy, Brandon Minter, could have so easily lost his job. So he, again, another ICA situation, Keke Palmer. I mean, people are putting their livelihoods on the line for what is right. And like Sarah said, you shouldn't have to. That shouldn't even have to be something that factors into your brain. But this guy did, and it changed. And I was talking to Chell about it because he's a big NFL person. If you're listening later and you're a new fan to us, Chell is my husband. He's a big football fan. And he was saying, there's right now, he feels like it's easier for them to do this, for the commissioner to do this, because they're not in an NFL season. So the national anthem isn't involved at all right now. So it's almost like now they're saying something. So it's a little convenient for them, but it's better, I guess, now, obviously, than never. But I do think they should have a formal apology to Colin Kaepernick as being the face of this, and for all the harassment that he has faced through the years for merely pointing out and recognizing injustice. Yeah,
I mean, it's a step. All of it, because there have been a few companies right now who are speaking out and saying, we're supporting Black Lives Matter. This is important. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great step. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. I just want to continue in that direction where we see it in action. We see different changes happening, and we see it sort of play out, and it's not just talk.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. All right, Sarah, do you have another one?
I don't have much more. I do just want to, I hate I hate to sound like I'm just harping on like these protests were successful, because successful is not the right word because it still has to continue. But I just want to point out the positives that have come from it. The University of Minnesota is no longer going to contract with the Minneapolis Police Department. And then following on those heels, the Minneapolis Parks and Rec, some local bars and restaurants that have to bring in security say they're no longer going to go to the police department. The public school board said the same thing. And we all know money talks. So if you have any issue with something, do not support them with your change. And that's how we make differences. So those are my tidbits. Those are my news.
Yes. Follow the money, as my grandpa Wally and my dad always said. Follow the money and you will find the root and the cause. I know you watched Little Fires Everywhere with your sister,
I did.
Right? I forgot to mention this. So the young 16-year-old star who plays the daughter of Kerry Washington, her name's Lexi Underwood. She delivered a powerful speech during a Black Lives Matter protest in LA on Wednesday. So she shared a clip. It's on her Twitter if you want to check it out. She revealed that she spoke to the Los Angeles Police Chief, Michael Moore, which is really an interesting name, and the commissioners about the behavior of law enforcement during peaceful protests. Yesterday, I talked to Chief Moore and the rest of the LAPD commission. She said, I shared with them stories about how the LAPD at all of these peaceful protests, how they have been incredibly disrespectful to people who are simply just asking to be treated equally. All we are asking is to be treated with the same exact respect as our white counterparts. That's it. And this is just
good for her.
16-year-old Lexi from, arguably
she's
one of
amazing in that show. She's a great little actress.
Such an important show to watch, to add to the list. So yeah, I was like, I think Sarah's watching that with her sister. So I want to make sure I say something about that. But
I want to just make sure that like I don't ever want to sound like I'm preaching to anybody. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I will continue to support Black Lives Matter and fight for equality, and that I want to continue to learn and just send my love to the entire world. Honestly, needs it.
Yeah, I think at this point now, a lot of people have asked, what can I do? I'm a white person. I think the worst thing you can do is stay silent, because then you're complicit to all of this. And especially if you have any form of platform, by no means are we feeling like we're virtue signaling, or we're so self-righteous. Like, I've never done that. I've shared story times on my own channel about mistakes I've made, and I'll continue to, and how privilege and how being conditioned as a white woman in this world, how that shaped certain really bad decisions or bad behavior on my part, and how unless it was pointed out, I would have kept acting that way. So I'm actually, then I was like, but now I'm grateful being like a teenager and getting called out by teachers and things like that for bad behavior, whether it be regarding, inequality or regarding anything, because I think we all need to be checked, and that's okay. And the main goal of this is to just, is to really, feel that we all have a voice. But right now there's a certain community of people that this is affecting, and that are dying, and that we really need to stand up and not stay silent, and don't worry about if you're sounding one way. You're always going to get the trolls who are going to say, oh, you're doing this, you're trying to, virtue signaling, it's the only word I can think of. I'm sorry. The only term I've used it like 27 times, but you're so self-righteous, you're this or that. And it's like, no,
we do have to speak up. We can't be silent, but we also do need to listen. That's the first step, is that we need to listen. We need to learn. We need to educate ourselves. Our generation doesn't know much about the previous, and then the previous before that. We're all guilty of that. So we need to continue to learn and grow, but then speak up.
Yes. Like, you don't want to be too white lady about it. You don't want to be a Karen about it, but
which, by the way, my mother-in-law's name is Karen, so I'm slightly offended by this whole thing, but I get it.
My favorite auntie's name is Karen. My favorite aunties. So Nana, my mom's
I'm just grateful my name is not Karen. I'd be so offended right now.
I know. Yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I mean, if the name was Jolene, I guess I'd just roll with it and be like, yeah, don't be a Jolene. Maybe I'd change my name to Jolyn or Joe or something. But yeah,
Jolene's such a good name. It would never be that.
I enjoy having conversations like this. Obviously, I enjoy entertainment, Sarah, but I like that it was actually Sarah's idea. She was like, what if we just did all like stories about Black Lives Matter and positive news coming out of the protests and cultural shifts that are happening. I was like, that's amazing. That's a great idea, because I really didn't want to get on last week and talk about happy stuff. I didn't care who's dating who. I didn't care who's having a baby. No offense. I didn't care. I didn't. If it wasn't about what's going on right now and how things are going to change and how we're going to take action, I just wasn't interested. So this has actually been selfishly therapeutic for me. So hopefully you guys feel
well. I hope everyone is doing some selfish self-care, because there is such thing as burnout. We can go hard and then we can burn out. So we all still have to take care of ourselves so that we stay strong for the movement.
Yes. And thank you guys all for the super chats, and definitely make sure that I think I didn't get to shout out Tami, and I think also Faith gave a super chat.
Thank you.
Wow. We were chatting, and all of that money, I'm going to add it all up and I will do a screenshot on our Good Pop. Make sure you follow us at Good Pop Pod on Instagram, and also follow Sarah and myself. Our links are in the description, and I will donate that to Black Lives Matter. So we did raise a little bit of money today. That's always
love that. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yes, that's always a good thing. And maybe going forward, Sarah and I will keep positive, good news discussions, even with a little bit of a social current events theme going forward. We'll see.
Absolutely.
Let us know what you guys think. Keep commenting after, and thank you all for joining us. And Sarah, thank you so much. I always have fun hanging with you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate it.
Yes. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.